Dude, today I'm going to show you truly unmissable games, the kind you need to play at least once in your life. The truth is, we're just passing through this world and time is short, so some games become mandatory experiences, the kind you should play as soon as possible. I've selected the 15 best games you absolutely need to play at least once in your life. Whether you're a casual player or a hardcore gamer, these titles deliver powerful, intense, and unforgettable experiences that stay with you long after the credits roll. Man, Metro Exodus is it's a mood, you know? I remember the exact moment I stepped out of the Moscow tunnels and realized the world was so much bigger and more terrifying than I thought. It's not just a shooter, it's a journey across a broken Russia on a train called the Aurora. What really got me was the immersion. You aren't just looking at a HUD, you're manually checking your map in real time, wiping mud off your gas mask and listening to your breath fogging up the glass. It makes you feel vulnerable. Artyom's story here feels so much more personal because of the crew. I spent way too much time just sitting on the train, smoking a virtual cigarette and listening to the characters talk about their dreams. The open sandbox levels like the Volga or the Caspian Sea are breathtakingly haunting. One minute you're sneaking past mutants in a lightning storm, and the next you're discovering a tragic story left behind in a dusty note. It's gritty, it's clunky in a way that feels realistic, and the ending, man, I'm not going to spoil it, but it left me staring at the screen for a good 10 minutes. If you want a game that feels like a survival epic rather than just another FPS, you need this.
Ryse: Son of Rome. Okay, I know what some of you are thinking. Ryse, really? But listen to me. Even in 2026, Ryse: Son of Rome is one of the most cinematic and visually stunning experiences you can have. I remember playing this for the first time and being floored by the facial animations and the way the sun reflected off Marius' armor. It feels like you're the lead actor in a $200 million historical blockbuster. The story is a classic tale of revenge and honor, and Marius Titus is a protagonist you really end up rooting for as he navigates the corruption of Rome. The combat is heavy, brutal, and incredibly satisfying. Yeah, it uses a lot of executions, but the rhythm of parrying a barbarian's axe and then leading a shield wall formation into a hail of arrows, it's pure hype. I'll admit it's a bit linear and the gameplay doesn't change much, but that's actually what I love about it. It doesn't overstay its welcome. It's a tight 7-hour blast of pure Roman fury. Every time I see a massive battle on screen, I just want to jump back in and lead my legion one more time. It's a spectacle that every gamer should witness at least once just for the sheer wow factor.
Detroit Become Human is a game that actually made me question my own morality. Detroit Become Human is a trip. You're playing through 3 different androids, Connor, Kara, and Marcus, and the way their stories intertwine is just genius. I remember my first playthrough, I was so stressed because the game actually makes you feel the weight of your choices. There are no wrong answers, just consequences that ripple through the entire city. One minute you're playing a detective thriller with Connor, and the next you're in a heart-wrenching survival story with Kara. The production value here is insane. The actors did such a killer job that you forget they're digital characters. I personally became obsessed with Connor's buddy cop vibe with Lieutenant Anderson. Their chemistry is easily the highlight for me. What's crazy is that the flowchart at the end of each chapter shows you just how many paths you missed, which makes you want to immediately go back in and try to save everyone. It tackles some really heavy themes about humanity and civil rights, and it does it with so much style. It's a slow burn narrative masterpiece that proves games can be just as powerful as the best prestige TV shows.
You don't need to be looking at that.
The Last of Us Part 1. Look, I've played a lot of games, but very few have left a permanent scar on my soul like The Last of Us Part 1. Even if you've seen the show, you have to play the game. There is something about being in control of Joel, feeling the desperation of every brick you throw and every shiv you craft. The relationship between Joel and Ellie is the heart of everything, and seeing it evolve from cold survival to a bond that would literally burn the world down, it's just peak storytelling. The sound design is what really messed with me. The clicking sound of, well, a clicker in a pitch black basement, that's pure nightmare fuel. I love that it's not a power fantasy. You're often outgunned and low on ammo, which makes every encounter feel like it could be your last. The villains in this world aren't just the infected, it's the people who have lost their humanity. It's a beautiful, miserable, and incredibly human story. If you haven't sat through that ending and felt your heart sink into your stomach, you're missing out on one of the greatest pieces of art our industry has ever produced. It's mandatory, period.
I think that's it.
Red Dead Redemption 2, man, Red Dead Redemption 2 isn't just a game, it's a place you actually live in for a few months. I remember the first time I just sat by the campfire as Arthur Morgan, watching the sunrise over the Heartlands, and I realized I hadn't even pulled my gun out in 2 hours. The level of detail is bordering on insane. The way your horse reacts to the cold, the mud on your boots, the way people in town remember if you caused trouble yesterday. It's slow, it's deliberate, and it demands your patience, but the payoff is a story that feels like a classic American novel. Arthur is probably my favorite protagonist of all time. He's a rough, dangerous man, but watching his internal struggle as the world of outlaws disappears around him is just heartbreaking. I spent so much time just hunting legendary animals or playing poker in Saint Denis, totally forgetting about the main missions. The world feels so alive that you almost feel guilty for fast traveling. Every time I hear that specific music kick in during a long ride, I get chills. It's a masterpiece of pacing and atmosphere that forces you to slow down and actually feel the life of an outlaw. If you haven't sat through the long, emotional journey of the Vanderlinde gang, you're missing out on a piece of history.
Uncharted 4: A Thief's End. If Red Dead is a slow burn novel, Uncharted 4 is the greatest summer blockbuster you've ever been the star of. Naughty Dog really outdid themselves with this one. I remember the first time I used the grappling hook to swing over a cliff in Madagascar while the Jeep was sliding through the mud. My heart was actually pounding. But what really hooked me this time wasn't just the explosions, it was the humanity. Seeing Nathan Drake try to live a normal life, playing video games on his couch and doing the dishes, made the high-stakes adventure with his brother Sam feel so much more earned. The chemistry between Nate, Sam, and Sully is just lightning in a bottle. The dialogue feels so natural, like you're just hanging out with old friends who happen to be getting shot at. The puzzles are clever without being annoying, and the locations are breathtaking. From the ruins of a pirate colony to the mountains of Scotland, I found myself using the photo mode every 5 minutes. It's a perfect farewell to one of gaming's most iconic characters. It's got humor, it's got massive holy crap set pieces, and it's got a heart of gold. It's the kind of game that reminds you why you started playing in the first place, for the sheer joy of the adventure. God of War 2018. Okay, let's talk about the most successful rebranding in history. Taking Kratos, the angriest man in Greece, and turning him into a stoic father in the Norse wilds was a genius move. God of War 2018 is a technical marvel. The fact that the entire game is one continuous camera shot with no cuts still blows my mind every time I play it. It makes the journey feel so much more intimate. You're right there with Kratos and boy, Atreus, every step of the way, feeling every heavy swing of the Leviathan axe. Speaking of that axe, the recall button is quite possibly the most satisfying mechanic ever put in a game. The relationship between Kratos and Atreus is the soul of the game. Watching Kratos struggle to be a father while hiding his bloody past is something that really hit home for me. The combat is brutal and tactical, a far cry from the button mashing of the old days. And the bosses? Man, the fight against the stranger at the beginning of the game is legendary. I loved exploring the Lake of Nine and seeing the world change as the water level dropped. It's a game about growth, secrets, and the weight of being a god. It's beautiful, it's violent, and it's a mandatory experience for anyone who wants to see how a character can truly evolve over 20 years.
Poison.
Finally, for this batch, we have the game that actually made me feel like a superhero. Marvel's Spider-Man by Insomniac is just pure, unadulterated fun. I remember the first 10 minutes, just swinging through Manhattan. The physics, the sense of momentum, the way Peter quips as he dives off the Empire State Building, they nailed it. I didn't even use fast travel once in my entire playthrough, because just moving through the city was its own reward. But the real surprise for me was Peter Parker. This isn't an origin story. He's been doing this for years, and his normal life is just as messy and engaging as his life in the mask. The combat is like a violent ballet, using gadgets and the environment to take down rooms full of thugs. It's fast, fluid, and feels exactly how Spidey should fight. But man, the story. The final act of this game had me in actual tears. The villains aren't just one-dimensional bad guys. They have history with Peter, which makes every confrontation feel personal and heavy. The way the game balances the humor of the wall crawler with the tragic responsibility of being a hero is perfect. It's the best Spider-Man story ever told outside of the comics, in my opinion. If you haven't zipped through the streets of NYC and felt that rush of adrenaline, you need to fix that immediately. Man, where do I even begin with The Witcher 3? This isn't just an RPG, it's the gold standard that every other open world is still trying to catch up to. I remember wandering into a tiny village in Velen thinking I was just doing a simple contract, and 2 hours later I was caught in a massive, heartbreaking story about family and sacrifice. That's the magic here. Even the smallest side quest feels like it was written by a master novelist. Geralt of Rivia is such a phenomenal protagonist. He's world-weary and cynical, but he's got this hidden heart that makes every choice you make feel heavy and real. The world itself is just chef's kiss. From the muddy, war-torn swamps to the vibrant, colorful streets of Novigrad, the atmosphere is so thick you can almost smell the rain and the monsters. I spent literal days just playing Gwent in taverns or tracking down legendary gear, totally losing track of the main plot. The combat is tactical and forces you to actually be a Witcher, brewing potions, oiling your blade, and studying your enemy. It's a game that respects your intelligence and rewards your curiosity at every turn. If you haven't lived Geralt's life, met Ciri, or faced the Wild Hunt, you're missing out on a piece of gaming soul. It's a massive, beautiful, and deeply human epic that you'll never forget. Titanfall 2 has the best single-player FPS campaign of the last decade, and it's a crime that it doesn't get talked about every single day. The movement system is pure gameplay crack. Wall running, sliding, and double jumping feels so natural that every other shooter feels clunky after you play this. But the real hook is the bond between Jack Cooper and his Titan, BT-7274. I didn't expect to get so attached to a giant walking tank, but BT is one of the most charming and loyal characters I've ever met in a game. His dry, robotic humor is just the best. Every single mission in this campaign introduces a new mechanic, like the time-traveling device in Effect and Cause, and then throws it away for something even cooler in the next level. It never overstays its welcome. It's just pure, distilled creativity from start to finish. The scale of the battles, where you're ejecting from your Titan midair to take out a pilot and then landing back in the cockpit, is pure adrenaline. It's a short campaign, maybe 6 or 8 hours, but it's 8 hours of absolute perfection. It's a game that reminds you how much fun a first-person shooter can actually be when the developers aren't afraid to take risks. Seriously, do it for BT. Sleeping Dogs. If there's one game on this list that I will defend until my last breath, it's Sleeping Dogs. It's basically a high-octane Hong Kong action movie where you're the star. You play as Wei Shen, an undercover cop infiltrating the Triads, and the tension of his double life is palpable in every cutscene. The atmosphere of Hong Kong is incredible. The night markets, the neon lights reflecting in the rain, the smell of street food almost coming through the screen. It feels so much more alive and dense than the massive empty maps we see in a lot of modern open worlds. The combat is the real standout. It's heavily inspired by the Arkham games, but it's way more brutal and martial arts focused. I remember the first time I used a car door or a frozen fish to take down a group of thugs. It's visceral, crunching, and incredibly satisfying. The driving also has this arcade-like snap to it that makes high-speed chases through narrow alleys a total blast. It's a game with a massive heart, a killer soundtrack, and a story about loyalty and identity that actually goes to some dark, heavy places. It's a hidden gem that absolutely deserves its spot among the legends. If you haven't experienced Wei Shen's struggle, you're missing out on a classic. Rise of the Tomb Raider. Rounding out this batch is Rise of the Tomb Raider, and for me, this is where the reboot trilogy really hit its peak. The setting of Siberia is just stunning. I spent way too much time in the photo mode just looking at how the snow deforms under Lara's boots or how the light hits the ancient ruins. This game leans heavily into the tomb part of the name, and discovering a hidden, massive underground temple behind a waterfall is a feeling of genuine wonder that few games manage to capture. It feels like a true globe-trotting adventure with actual stakes. Lara feels so much more capable and scrappy here. The combat gives you so many options, from being a ghost in the bushes with a bow to using the environment to cause absolute chaos. I loved the Metroidvania flow of the game. Getting a new piece of gear and remembering a cave you saw 3 hours ago is such a rewarding loop. The puzzles are actually clever and make you feel like a genius when you finally solve them. It's a game that respects your curiosity and rewards you for exploring every nook and cranny. It's polished, it's gorgeous, and it's the ultimate survival fantasy. If you want to feel like a legendary explorer, Lara's journey in the ice is mandatory. Elden Ring? Look, I'm gonna be real with you. Elden Ring is a mountain you just have to climb. I remember the first time I stepped out into Limgrave and saw that massive Erd tree glowing on the horizon. I felt this weird mix of total awe and, oh man, I am going to die a lot, aren't I? And yeah, I did. But that's the beauty of it. It's a game that doesn't hold your hand. It respects you enough to let you get lost and find your own way. The sense of discovery here is unmatched. You see a weird tower in the distance, and 2 hours later, you've discovered an entire underground civilization. The combat is a brutal, high-stakes dance where every win feels like a genuine accomplishment. I've never shouted yes at my TV as loud as I did when I finally took down Melania. But it's not just about the difficulty, it's about the atmosphere. The world of the Lands Between is haunting, melancholic, and deeply mysterious. You're piecing together a story of fallen gods and shattered grace while fighting some of the most imaginative bosses ever designed. It's a massive, overwhelming, and soul-crushing masterpiece that somehow makes you want to keep coming back for more. If you haven't faced the challenge and become the Elden Lord, you're missing out on the definitive gaming experience of this decade. Starfield. Now, let's talk about a game that literally gave me the keys to the universe. Starfield is a polarizing one for some, but for me, it's pure dream fuel. There is something incredibly addictive about building your own spaceship from scratch, naming it, customizing the cockpit, and then taking off from a dusty moon into the starfield. I've spent literal hours just wandering across barren planets, looking at the rings of a gas giant through my telescope and just soaking in the silence. It captures that specific feeling of the final frontier better than almost anything else out there. The scale is just hard to wrap your head around. One minute you're caught up in a high-stakes corporate espionage plot in the neon-lit streets of Neon, and the next you're joining a faction of space cowboys or exploring an ancient alien mystery. I love how Bethesda it feels. The freedom to just pick a direction and find a story is still there, but now it's across 1,000 planets. Sure, the loading screens can break the immersion sometimes, and the procedural planets can feel empty, but that's the point of space, right? It's vast and lonely. It's a game about curiosity and the human urge to see what's over the next horizon. If you've ever looked at the stars and wanted to go there, this is your ticket.
Be careful, Captain. Alien.
Resident Evil 7 Biohazard. Finally, we're ending on a game that genuinely made me scared to turn my lights off. Resident Evil 7 was a massive gamble for Capcom, shifting to first person, but man did it pay off. I remember the first time I entered that decrepit baker house in the Louisiana bayou. The smell of rotting food and damp wood felt like it was coming through the screen. This isn't just a zombie game, it's a claustrophobic Texas Chainsaw Massacre style nightmare. Being hunted through those narrow hallways by Jack Baker is some of the most intense, heart-pounding tension I've ever experienced in a game. The shift to first person makes everything feel so much more personal. You aren't just watching a character get scared, you are the one hiding behind a door, praying that the creak of the floorboards doesn't give you away. The story of Ethan Winters and the mystery of the Baker family is dark, twisted, and surprisingly emotional. It brought the series back to its survival horror roots, limited ammo, inventory management, and puzzles that actually make you think. It's a dirty, gross, and absolutely terrifying ride that completely revitalized the franchise. If you want to see if your heart can handle it, you need to step into that house. Just maybe don't play it right before bed. And there you have it, guys. 15 games that I truly believe you must play at least once. These are the experiences that make being a gamer so special. But I want to know, what's on your list? Is there a game that changed your life that I totally missed? Drop a comment below and let's talk about it. I'm always looking for my next mandatory experience.